4 stars in Genshin Impact are looked at by most to be the free-to-play friendly characters of the game. After all, new accounts will have way more 4 stars than 5 stars, and everyone's always talking about how good the 4 stars are. But what if I told you at this point in the game, they are actually less free-to-play friendly than the 5 stars, and they get even less so with every passing patch? So let's talk about why that is and what you can do to save yourself a ton of regret and headache while building out your account. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. As I said, most new accounts will have many more 4 stars than 5 stars, and obviously for good reason. You get a 4 star every 10 wishes, either a weapon or a character, and you only get a 5 star usually every 70 wishes, or every 55, or whatever the average ends up being. But there's been a lot of talk recently, especially with the new trend of lots of 4 stars being only viable at C6. Of course, we have some that are good at earlier constellations, but getting a Constellation 6 4 star is something that used to be kind of taken for granted. Old players, if we take a look, because there were so few 4 star characters, you were getting reruns for these characters every couple months. But now, reruns for 4 stars can be stretching up to 6 months long. A lot of content creators kind of assume, actually, that you're gonna have a high constellation Xingqiu, a high constellation Sucrose, high constellation Fischl, or Bennett, or Zhang Ling. But the reality for new players is that you're just as likely to have a high constellation Candice, or a high constellation Dory, or high constellation Hazo as you are to have these old characters. And that is the first problem that we face. The new 4 stars are not generally quite as good as the old 4 stars, but they have become less and less common to be shown on banners. So you're not likely just to get a Constellation 6 Xingqiu. Let's look quickly. How many times has Xingqiu been reran recently? Because I have a hunch that he has not been reran nearly as much as he used to. He hasn't actually been on banner since March 1st of 2023. It's been 5 months since Xingqiu has reran, and he was only on 2 banners, Hu Tao and Yelan. Well, for you to have a high constellation Xingqiu, you'd almost have to wish for Yelan. You might have gotten an early Yelan. You might have used your pity on the other banners. You might not have even gotten a single copy of Xingqiu on this Yelan banner. And if you're like me and you don't often get that many 4 stars that you're looking for from the standard banner, you may be without Xingqiu, which is crazy. And of course, Genshin does have the shop feature where you can purchase some characters with your StarGlitter, but this StarGlitter Shop is actually kind of a trap, and I'll talk about that in a minute. When was the last time Xingqiu reran before that? September 27th, 5 months. So we're coming up on a year for Xingqiu, and he's only been on banner twice. Kokomi has rerun as many times as Xingqiu has. Let's take a quick look at how many times he reran in the beginning. So he was on the 2nd banner ever, November 10th, 2020, and his first rerun was February. So that's 4 months. Then in March, 1 month. Then in June, 3 months. So 1 month, 3 month, average of about 2.5 months of reruns. So we're almost coming up on double the rerun time for 4 stars to come back versus when they first started. And I'm not going to go over other examples. I'm just going to talk about Xingqiu. But trust me when I say this, you could do this for any original Genshin Impact 4 star, and you would see that they reran all the time back in the day, and they're not rerunning nearly as much anymore. And it's obviously just because we have so many more new 4 stars. All this to say is, Xingqiu, one of the best characters in the game, his C6 honestly does a ton for Xingqiu, regenerating energy and doing a really sizable amount more damage. His C2 is really, really good. Anyway, Xingqiu at C6 is not the same character as he is as early constellations. He's still broken, don't get me wrong. Like, he's still one of the best characters in the game at Constellation 0, but a Constellation 6 Xingqiu really can make a difference in how much your account is progressing, and it is something that you would like to aim for if you could. But if you're trying to plan out your account, what are you supposed to do? Wait 5 months for a Xingqiu rerun, and then he's not even with a 5 star that you're actually looking to get? Like, you're thinking, oh, I don't need Yelan, I can just get Xingqiu instead. He's more free-to-play friendly because he's a 4 star. But for him to actually be competitive with Yelan, or to actually, sorry, not competitive, he's very competitive with Yelan, even at C0. But when he gets to C6 is when he sort of surpasses Yelan, in my opinion. So who is actually the more free-to-play friendly character here? Is it Xingqiu or is it Yelan? Well, Xingqiu you can at least, again, get from the StarGlitter Shop, and so you could make the argument that eventually you could guarantee yourself a C6 Xingqiu, but the other problem is there is no pity for the 4 stars. You could just get Yan Fei. If you saw my wishing video, it's a pretty funny wishing video where I went for C6 Farazan, got double 5-star in there, but it really also showcases the pain of attempting to get a high constellation 4-star character. Now, is a C6 4-star equivalent to a C2 5-star? I don't think so, because you can also get other 5 stars while wishing for that 4-star. But because there's no pity system, it ends up being random when you get them. They really need to add some sort of epitomized path over here. It'd be so easy. Just take this epitomized path, put it over here, and you can choose which 4-star you want and work towards that 4-star. It would still take you a lot of wishes to max out that 4-star pity, but at least you'd be able to guarantee it. Whereas currently, you could literally never get a Xingqiu, never get a Faruzan. It's possible. It's probably not going to happen, but it is possible. But everyone knows that part. We all know that's really bad. Let's not harp on that too much. But there's another problem with 4 stars, and that is that of overlapping roles. Now, you may think, it's great that there's so many different roles. It's great that we have, 2 different 4-star healing options and a 5-star Dendro healing option. It's great that we have 2 4-star cryo shielding options. That's great. Variety is great. Well, kind of. Personally, I really enjoy it because I don't love Yao Yao's design. I love Kirara's design. I don't love Diona's design. I love Layla's design. So I can personally choose to play Layla instead of playing Diona, and it makes me very happy because I like the character better. But if we're looking specifically for powering up your account, making your account stronger, this is actually really bad. Although Yao Yao's and Kirara's and even Layla's constellations are not that crazy, they do give pretty noticeable increases to defensive utility, some buffing, some elemental application, and even some damage. And so they're really constellations that are really good for that character. And all these things add up, right? If you have a team with, if you get 1 constellation, right, it doesn't increase the power of your team all that much. But if all of your 4 stars have, 2, 3, 4 more constellations each, now we're looking at a pretty sizable power increase for your team. But by splitting up these roles, by having 2 different 4-star Dendro defensive options, that means that they're going to rerun even less, and you're less likely to get a C6 Yao Yao. You're more likely to get a C2 Yao Yao, a C2 Kirara, and a C2 Kave, because you're going to be wishing on a variety of banners, not just pouring all of your primos onto 1 banner. And so they're sneakily making it much harder for you to get further constellations. Candace is another example. She's almost always just a downgrade to Xingqiu. She can be useful if you don't have more 5-star Hydro options, and I even made a video on how underrated and how pretty solid she is because of her element, how I actually think Candace is a good character. But the problem is, every time Candace is on a banner, she's potentially depriving you of Xingqiu being on the banner, because they essentially fill a very similar role. Off-field Hydro Applicator. And of course, it's not a perfect comparison because Candace does have a really great spot in Nilou teams. It still dilutes overall the Hydro roster and makes it harder for you to get high constellations of a certain character. Same with Hazo. It's nice that we have this really cool on-field Animo DPS, but often he's a downgrade to Sucrose. And getting Hazo on banner is often depriving you of having a Sucrose on banner. Dory is another great example. Fills a very similar role to Kuki, who's an absolutely incredible character these days, but every time Dory's on the banner, they're potentially depriving you of a Kuki. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have this many 4 stars, but it would be nice if they were all more at a similar power level so that you don't feel really bad for getting one or the other. Or again, we have that epitomized path so you can really focus fire on your Kuki and actually get that C2, which she kind of really needs for that elemental application to last a full rotation. And so hopefully you can see that not only are characters like Goro problematic, and Faruzan and Mika because they rely on their C6. Goro not as much, he's a lot better, but especially Kujo, Sara, Faruzan, and Mika really want their C6. That not only they're a problem, but even Layla and Dory, these are sneaky ways for Hoyoverse to make it so your account is more diluted. And to get the 4 stars you want, you have to limit your selection of 5 stars. So we have a larger variety, but less speciality. So what do I recommend you do? What do I recommend you do to combat Hoyoverse's evil plan to suck as many Primo Gems as possible, so you get this huge variety of 4 stars that you can never build and you don't ever build towards the ones you want? Well, there are a few things that we can do, and there's a couple things of Hoyoverse that Hoyoverse can and should do. But the number one thing that I would recommend that you do is plan out your account. Open up Tier List Maker, take out your favorite characters, say you really love Hu Tao, you really love Wanderer, and start planning out your account. Not necessarily planning out their exact teams, but planning out the characters that might work well with them and that you actively want to aim for. Once you kind of have an idea of what characters you're going to go for on those teams, then you want to be on the lookout for banners that are high value to you, that have multiple characters that you really want to use. And the way that I was able to do it when I started was, if there was a 5-star that I wouldn't mind getting, so for example, maybe you're not planning on getting a Yaimiko, which I wasn't when I first started, but I said to myself, you know, I'm trying to get Toma, and I wouldn't mind if I got a Yaimiko in, let's say, 30 summons. So I put 30 wishes trying to get some copies of Toma. I got some copies of Toma, but I also got an early Yaimiko. So it's important to remember, don't assume you're not going to get that early 5-star, because it definitely could happen. You want to be careful and only do this strategy with characters that you actually kind of want. I definitely don't recommend building Pity just for the sake of building Pity, but building Pity to try and get a 4-star on a 5-star banner that you wouldn't mind is a really, really smart thing to do, and probably is the only way that you're going to snag some extra copies of some really good 4-stars. It's especially helpful if you wait to the end of a banner cycle and we can get the knowledge of future banners before the other banner ends. That way you can plan your pulls, although I know how difficult it is to wait for the end of a banner to actually wish. And I do want to briefly touch on the StarGlitter Shop, because I know I talked about it earlier. I do think the StarGlitter Shop is in general not worth it, but it can be worth it depending on your account. The reason why it's in general not worth it is very simple. When you get a Constellation 6 4-star, after that you only get 5 StarGlitter for each additional copy that you get. But to buy a constellation of that character, you have to spend 34 StarGlitter, which is effectively 7 pulls. So you spend 7 pulls for that 4-star, which in theory is fine, but you're losing out on 7 pulls towards a 5-star character, which is actually quite a lot. And second, those pulls are not being returned to you in a nice way. If you ever get that character again, you only get 5 back. So you're effectively losing 6 pulls. 6 pulls just gone, vaporized, if you ever get that character again in your entire time playing Genshin Impact. Now, if you're not going to be playing Genshin Impact for a super long time, maybe you don't ever get to that point. But especially if you're going to be getting multiple copies of 4-stars on here, it's really risky business. But I understand on the other side, if you're stuck at Constellation 0 Bennett and you haven't been able to get his C1, which is really good, or Constellation 3 Zhangling and her C4 is really good, it could be worth it for you to spend to get a copy or 2 of those characters. The only characters I'm in full support of saving for are standard characters, like the starter characters, so Kaya, Amber, and Lisa, because they can realistically only be gotten from here. That's another problem with the standard banner, is that it's basically almost impossible to get a 4-star that you want, because there are absolutely so many. Another massive problem is actually the 4-star weapons. Some of the best 4-star weapons in the game are actually exclusive to the weapon banner, which is unbelievable to me. Something like the Xiphos Moonlight is, you can only get this from the weapon banner, and it's an elemental mastery sword that can restore energy for your party. At high refines, it is one of the best weapons in the game for certain characters like Kazuha, but it's a weapon that's exclusive to the weapon banner, which also has no epitomized path on it, so you can never guarantee to get yourself a Xiphos, and they do not get added to the standard banner, which is absolutely ridiculous. I definitely think that they should be added to the standard banner. It's crazy that they're not. And similarly, I think that other 4-stars should be added to the StarGlitter Shop. I think that Faruzan should be added to the StarGlitter Shop, that Kujo Sara should be added to the StarGlitter Shop, so that, because even if you're wasting your wishes, at least eventually you're guaranteed to get those high value constellations. And for that overall power increase, it can be worth it to get that guarantee instead of keep gambling on the banner. Of course, I know why they do it. They're trying to make as much money as possible. The final thing that they could do to make 4-stars just a little bit more palatable is if we get more banners. So either a third 5-star here, or we get an extra cycle per patch, where we have 3 banner cycles per patch instead of 2. So right now we have Kokomi Wanderer in the second half. In the first half, we had Eula Klee. So if we had 3 banner cycles and the banner was shorter, but we had another set of 3 4-stars, the 4 stars would run faster, and so you'd have more chances to get those 4 stars. Or if they added a third 5-star, and so you have a choice of 3 5-stars to go for when you're shooting for those 4 stars, that would also be really nice. It really is good that it's 2 instead of just 1, because it means there's more chances that you have a 5-star on banner that you actually want to snipe that 4-star. If you've been enjoying the video, please consider subscribing. We're taking the channel full time, and every single sub helps me out a lot. If you haven't already, check out my video on the top strongest 5-stars in the game. I think it's going to be right up there. Feel free to check out the Discord or my Patreon. And if you don't want to do any of those things, that's totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Bye for now.